Hi, it's that time again, another installment of 8 more little rocks that we can study and begin to add into our work. As always, if you would like to see what the glyph looks like or have a hard copy of the keywords or key sentences in this case, you can check out my website at divinationcounselingservice.org. In the interim, I'd like to mention a really good book on all of the asteroids that we've studied so far is this Patterns of Behavior. It comes from Martha Lang Westcott, who has her own website at marthalangwestcott.com. I highly recommend it. She does a really wonderful in-depth interpretation of each of these asteroids, and it helps to give you a better understanding of the detail they bring to the chart and all the different things they can tell you. So with that said, let's begin with the 8 for today. The Asteroids Part 7 includes Daedalus, Eos, Eurydike, Industria, Odysseus, Pythia, Sphinx, Tisiphone. Okay? And I'm going to begin with Daedalus. And Daedalus is kind of cool because it shows cleverness. Okay? But it's cleverness where people tend to escape the consequences of their actions. And oftentimes those consequences fall squarely on the shoulders of those around them. So when you're dealing with the Daedalus, you're also dealing with someone who's clever, that takes advantage of their cleverness and uses it so that the consequences of their actions then fall on the shoulders of others. It's that ability to escape consequence. It's also an indication of jealousy, another issue. The glyph looks like the sign of Uranus, but where the horizontal line is that goes across, there's a triangle. So the triangle comes down to the ground. So a Uranus with a triangle. Our next asteroid is Eos. And Eos represents early mornings, okay? So, but think about what's going on in your life if you have to, really begin early in the morning. Generally, it's because you want to get ahead of the craziness of whatever's going on, the situation. So when you think of Eos, you think of early mornings, you think of being scattered, energy being scattered, but it can even be misdirected anger. Think of the fallout of anger, particularly when it's misdirected. Put them together. We've got a Daedalus, a clever person who allows the consequences of his actions to fall on others, and then what's the result oftentimes? Misdirected anger. So I just like doing that. I did that as we used to go to astrology conferences and put our asteroids together and create words or describe another word. Zeus Sirius or Zeus Mercury would be a cigarette. Fun things. It's really fun to work with this stuff. Eurydike is our next one. Oh, I'm sorry, with Eos, the glyph is an arrow. It looks like Sagittarius, but think of that arrow broken and then pointing downward. That's Eos. I think it also describes the energy really well. Eurydike, our next one, is a dependency on others for whatever reason. Eurydike is when you're led by others. Sometimes we're forced to Eurydike. We have to be dependent on others. People that work are often dependent upon managers or bosses. So sometimes that's unavoidable. Eurydike tells us, though, that it's not just being led by others, but it's sometimes that sadness that results from being led by others. So it's not a great thing sometimes when you're in a situation where you're really dependent on somebody else. And the glyph is a great, just like Eos, it's an awesome interpretation of that energy. It's Orpheus, which we know as sadness, with a Juno top. So the top of it is Juno. And it's a partner. So it's sadness and dependency. So it's sadness through dependency, or it's a bummer. I'm dependent on somebody else. Industria, our next asteroid here, is about production. Okay, this is a very productive energy. This is about being industrious and productive. It relates to work, our vocation. But you can be industrious around your home when you're doing big projects and you're getting a lot done. That's an example of industrious. So it is that concept of being productive. That particular glyph is Saturn with a top on it. So instead of one line across the top, there's one above it. There are two lines. Industria. Odysseus is our next one. This is about travel and travelers. The idea of being a foreigner, a stranger. What are you like in strange places? What strange people are around you? Because you can be around a lot of Odysseus. You don't necessarily have to be the Odysseus, but Odysseus is about the idea of being out of place. I belong somewhere else. I'm away from home. I'm out of my comfort zone, so to speak. And Odysseus, the glyph is a half moon with an arrow extending from it off to the right. So I was a dancer, and I went to school, college for dance and choreography. And one of the things you kind of learn about is staging. And when the arrow goes off to the right, it is about the future. So it's also going away, feeling out of place. That brings us to Pythia. Pythia, one of my favorites, is an asteroid where you're intuitive, but you misread it. You got it wrong. It's interesting because of my professions. A lot of what I do is related to intuition, not necessarily because I'm a scholar. And I've done, the predictive work I do is based in scientific evidence. But I read a lot about it with clients. And, there are those times when our intuition tells us these things are going to happen, and they really do. But the outcome is not what we had supposed it to be. And a lot of times it is because of misreading or a misrepresentation. Not even done consciously or maliciously, just it is what it is. So it's misunderstandings. It's misrepresenting or misunderstanding the signs, and it leads to faulty perceptions. And faulty perceptions, there's another asteroid that we work with. So along the way, there are going to be other asteroids that are very similar to even the asteroids that we've already gone through. And Pythia also has another, what we would call faulty perception. I can make that distinction when I get there, but in the case of Pythia, there's a little bit more pre-intuitive activity to this faulty perception. In other words, there was a misreading or a misunderstanding in our other asteroid that, and I won't even mention it yet because it will only get more overwhelming, but that particular asteroid could be that the faulty perception has been ingrained in the individual for a very long time, and they're coming to face it. So it's a very different, but yet very similar. And that's one of the things that I really love about this work. It really helps you decipher those fine lines. So Pythia is a capital P with a half circle that cups around the circle of the P, and then another half circle that extends for the bottom half of the P. So the Pythia reminds you of an hourglass with a head in the top. So it really has that upper, getting that information, something's not quite right, and then maybe it all spills out. So the next one, Sphinx. Sphinx is great because after you learn Sphinx and you start using Sphinx as a glyph, you replace your question marks. because a glyph is a question mark, but instead of a dot at the end, it's an arrow. So it creates an arrow at the bottom, pointing to the fact that there is indeed a question, missing information. There's a lot of unknowns. So it's perfect. So I find myself doing that as I'm writing things down on a piece of paper. Oftentimes, if I'm going to write a question mark, 9 times out of 10, I accidentally put Sphinx down instead, because that's how closely they look like one another. Tisiphone is just rewards. And that's really important, because when you're reading that in astrology, they're not telling you if these just rewards are like, oh, wow, you just won an award, or just rewards, you just got your butt kicked, because that whatever you were counting on or whatever you were planning on, that just reward didn't happen. So this just rewards, this Tisiphone, is a very interesting asteroid. It has to be read in the chart itself to really determine what is it referring to. So when we look at it in a situation such as this, where we're just going through keywords, we're just trying to grasp a general meaning, then think of its avenging energy, one way or the other. It could be you just did a heck of a good job and now you're getting a reward for it, but it could also be you were a jerk, and as a result of your bad judgments, here's your just reward. So it can work either way. It really does require that you go on and get more details if you're reading it for somebody else. That particular glyph, again, is a half moon, but this time extended off to the right is a cross. It's the cross to bear. Whether it's a good or it's a bad, it's a cross to bear. With that said, I hope to see you again next time for more on the asteroids, and it was an enjoyable pleasure to be here with you today. Take care, keep learning, keep applying them, and keep being excited about astrology. You know, the world does need us. Bye-bye.